To proceed to the much-awaited presentations, it's my privilege to introduce to you the Honorable Secretary, Dr. Benjamin Diokno, who serves as the Secretary of Finance of the Philippines. Secretary Diokno's illustrious career is marked by his profound contributions to the field of economics and finance and his dedicated service to the Philippine government. Prior to his current appointment as Finance Secretary, he served as the Governor of the Bangko Sentral ng Filipinas from 2019 to 2022. Under his leadership, the Philippine Central Bank played a pivotal role in responding to the unprecedented challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, implementing decisive measures to mitigate its adverse impact and pave the way for economic recovery. Before his tenure at the BSP, Secretary Diokno also served as our Budget Secretary under 3 presidents, where he championed an expansionary fiscal policy to fuel investments in human capital development and public infrastructure. We note that as Finance Secretary, Secretary Diokno outlined 3 broad development goals to be achieved by 2028. These include reducing the deficit to GDP ratio to pre-pandemic levels, bringing down poverty incidence to single digits, and attaining upper middle income economy status for the Philippines by the end of the current administration. Today, we are privileged to have Secretary Diokno to share his insights on the economic landscape and investment opportunities in the Philippines. Please join me in extending a round of applause to welcome Secretary Benjamin Diokno.
Senator Mark Villar, His Excellency Medardo Macaraig, Ambassador of the Philippines to Singapore, Piyush Gupta, DBS Group CEO and Director, Tan Su Shan, DBS Group Head of Institutional Banking, Clifford Lee, DBS DBS Global Head of Fixed Income, Guillermo Lochanco, ICCP Chairman Emeritus, Val Bagaching, Chairman and CEO of the ICCP. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm pleased to be back here along with the economic team of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for our second Philippine Economic Briefing in Singapore. Beyond question, Singapore holds a special place in the Philippines' growth story. This year, we celebrate 54 years of diplomatic relations, an enduring partnership characterized by strong political, economic, cultural, and people-to-people ties. Singapore is the Philippines' top source of foreign direct investments. From 2018 to 2022, net FDI inflows from Singapore amounted to $4.8 billion, with investments in key sectors including renewable energy, infrastructure, healthcare, manufacturing, and ICT. In terms of trade, Singapore is the Philippines' 7th largest trading partner globally, 5th largest export market, and 6th largest import supplier. This city-state is also home to over 200,000 Filipino workers and residents. In 2022 alone, overseas Filipino remittances from Singapore reached $2.3 billion. As we unfold new chapters in the Philippines' growth story, allow me to share with you our economic prospects, strategies, and opportunities for mutually beneficial investments. We entered the year on strong footing, following a 46-year high full-year growth rate of 7.6% in 2022. The Philippine economy grew by a solid 6.4%. This performance outpaced emerging Asian economies, including India, Malaysia, Indonesia, China, Vietnam, and Thailand. The expansion was broad-based across the three major production sectors led by services, industry, and agriculture. Strong domestic demand has continued to drive our growth. Household consumption expanded by 6.3%, bolstered by a resilient labor market and pent-up demand. Investments also provided ample contributions as it grew by 12.2%. The unrelenting strength of our economic performance, along with the rest of the region, is a bright spot amid an uncertain global outlook. The International Monetary Fund projects growth in emerging and developing Asia at 5.3% for this year, higher than the rest of the world. This means strong cooperation among our economies will be critical in driving global growth and recovery. And while the global outlook on growth remains dim, international financial institutions and credit rating agencies have nevertheless continued to put their confidence in the Philippines, growth prospects, and macroeconomic fundamentals. This year, both the IMF and the World Bank revised their growth projection upwards for the Philippines, from 5.6% to 6%. At the same time, the Philippines has maintained investor-grade credit ratings. Just last month, Fitch Ratings affirmed the country's investor-grade BBB rating and improved its outlook from negative to stable, citing the Philippines' strong growth prospects, sound economic policy framework, and prudent debt management. All of this give us confidence that we are on track to achieving our 2023 growth target of 6% to 7% and a faster 6.5 to 8% from 2024 to 2028. Our growth reflects continued improvements in the labor market. Since the reopening of the economy, we have maintained low levels of unemployment. In April of this year, the unemployment rate dropped to 4.5% from 5.7% a year ago. Underemployment has also gone down to 12.9% in April compared to 14% the same month last year. More workers are joining the labor force. Our labor force participation rate increased to 65.1% in April, higher than the 63.4% recorded in April 2022. Our fiscal performance is robust. In 2022, total revenue collections reached 3.6 trillion pesos, or about $64 billion, 18% higher than the year before. This performance is driven by higher economic activity, the impact of our tax reforms in recent years, and overall better tax administration, mainly through digitalization. Net foreign direct investment inflows was recorded at $548 million in March 2023, and this brings our year-to-date inflows to $2 billion. We have adequate buffers against external headwinds. As of end May 2023, gross international reserves stood at $101.3 billion. That's equivalent to 7.6 months worth of import cover. Now, in the face of higher commodity prices globally due to geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, we have been seeing a consistent slowdown in inflation. Headline inflation is for the fourth consecutive months in May, hitting 6.1% from 6.6% the month before. We are determined to achieve price stability through the deployment of appropriate monetary and fiscal measures, which include intensified strategies to address supply-side constraints in food, energy, and water. This will allow us to manage inflation to within the range of 5 to 6% this year and further decline to within the target range of 2 to 4% by next year. Evidently, the Philippine economy is endowed with stable macroeconomic fundamentals. grounded on fiscal prudence, agile risk management, and groundbreaking structural reforms. Strong fiscal management underpins these efforts. Our commitment to the medium-term fiscal framework will ensure that our growth path rests on a credible strategy to reduce the fiscal deficit, promote fiscal sustainability, and enable robust economic growth. The framework serves as our guide to bring down the debt-to-GDP ratio to less than 60% by 2025, cut the deficit-to-GDP ratio to 3% by 2028, and maintain infrastructure spending at 5 to 6% of GDP annually. Our gradual fiscal consolidation path is complemented by structural reforms to increase the flow of investment and trade. In particular, at the height of the pandemic, we have opened the Philippine economy to greater foreign participation through the amendments to the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, Foreign Investments Act, and Public Service Act. The amendments to the Retail Trade Liberalization Act simplified the qualification requirements and reduced the minimum paid-up capital requirement for foreign retailers from $2.5 million to $500,000. Meanwhile, the amended Foreign Investments Act narrows the scope of investment subjects to review, provides flexibility and transparency in the adjustment of the foreign investment negative list, and liberalizes the practice of professions. Last but not least, the Public Service Act was amended to allow full foreign ownership of public services such as telco, toll roads, expressways, shipping, and airports. The implementing rules and regulations of these laws just recently been released. We have also opened up the renewable energy sector to full foreign ownership, which means investment in solar, wind, hydro, and tidal energy. This will quicken our shift towards clean and sustainable energy sources. We also amended our tax system. The Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, or the CREATE law, reduced our corporate income tax rates, previously the highest in the region, to 20% for domestic MSMEs and 25% for other corporations. And to attract strategically important investments, CREATE provides for a flexible and generous incentive system that is performance-based, targeted, time-bound, and transparent. Since the enactment of the CREATE law up to end May 2023, the Fiscal Incentives Review Board approved the grant of incentives to 39 projects, representing 694 billion pesos, or about $12.4 billion in investment capital. And these are expected to create more than 28,000 jobs. Earlier this month, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, has finally entered into full force in the Philippines. Hailed as a modern, high-quality, and mutually beneficial economic partnership agreement fit for the 21st century, RCEP promotes regional cooperation in a time of geo-economic fragmentation. And we are eager to reap the benefits of expanded trade, increased export coverage, and deeper economic integration among RCEP members. As we now run our leg of the race, we will continue to move forward with bolder structural reforms and strategic public investments that would lay the foundation for inclusive and sustainable prosperity in the Philippines. Closing the infrastructure gap is central to the Philippines' growth strategy. Smart, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure is key to enhancing product connectivity within our regions and with the rest of the world, boosting overall productivity and establishing livable communities. Standing on the shoulders of the previous administration's expansive infrastructure program, we are building better and building more. We are committed to maintain high infrastructure spending at 5 to 6% of GDP annually, supported by investments from the private sector. We will harness private capital and expertise through the public-private partnership mechanism. This will be critical in upgrading our health, energy, logistics, agriculture, transportation, telecommunications, digital connectivity, and water infrastructure. Key sectors identified in the recently published infrastructure flagship projects list approved by the NEDA board. Early on in the administration, we prioritized the establishment of a more fertile policy environment for public-private partnerships in the Philippines. So within the first 100 days of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s administration, we improved the implementing rules and regulations of the Build, Operate, Transfer law to reflect best investment policies and practices with focus on viability and bankability of PPP projects. We also revised the Investment Coordination Committee guidelines on public-private partnership approvals to ensure faster processing and approvals of PPP projects. Furthermore, we revised the joint venture guidelines to simplify processes, maximize competition at the national and local levels. Learning from some of the strongest economies in the world, including Singapore, the Philippines is now training its eyes on longer-term investments for the Filipino people. Just 2 weeks ago, the Philippine Congress approved the Maharlika investment financing opportunities with foreign investors, multilateral institutions, and other sovereign wealth funds